So hello guys, what's up? So this is me Kurtzus, and for today's video, I'll be lecturing or discussing all about basic formats of your research paper. Now basically you have an idea of this one because you have your practical research when you are in the senior high, no? But basically this will serve as a review, especially this is essential for the subject. Now, basically, when we talk about the basic format of your research paper, any universities, and academic institutions always use the IMRAD. So they follow it religiously. Some would just use it as a guideline, then provided their own formats. But basically, when we look into the research, ang kagandahan kasi ng IMRAD, medyo organize yung data niya. No? So, organize yung pag-construct natin ng ating mga papers, quote-unquote research paper. So, basically, IMRAD stands for Introduction, Methodology, Results, and Discussion. Now, to provide us a very brief background aside from your notes or definition about yung IMRAD, when we talk about introduction, simply it attempts to answer the question why. Why are you pursuing this type of research? Why are you pursuing this topic? Why are you pursuing itong mga terminologies, no? So basically dito papasok yung significance, basically what would be the issues, etc. No? So, and then next would not be in terms of methodology. Now the methodology part would now be yung main core natin sa statistics, no? So basically how you will now conduct that research. What type of research design? Is it qualitative? Is it quantitative? Then, talking about quantitative, kasi yun yung format natin ngayon, talking about quantitative, ano yung magiging statistical treatment? What would be the statistical tools that we will be using? Is it now through univariate statistics? We will just look for the mean, mode, median, or we will have to look for the t-test, z-test, ANOVA, etc. No? So, dito papasok yung statistical part. Then, the results would now be yung aftermath ng ating methodology. So after extracting and gathering the data, you will have to organize your data, then analyze it. So under results, then analysis, we find out that what? It questions the question what. So what would now be the findings? Then what would be now your analysis? Yung critic natin dito, no? Then after the findings, it will now be through the discussions and also the conclusions and recommendation to what? Anong silbi ng findings mo? So what? Yun yung appropriate term, or to what extent na ma-apply natin tong research natin. So ganun yung IMRAD. Now basically, no, when you look or when we work in several institutions, academic man yan or agencies, government agencies for instance, medyo nagva-vary yung format nila, no, although they use the guideline IMRAD, no. So just a tip or rather a suggestion, or rather tip or suggestion, no? It depends on your institution, no? So for instance, you students are studying here at St. Louis Universities, we have to look into the institutional format, no? So tendency, baka under introduction may sub-formats pa siya, no? Under methodology may sub-formats pa yan, no? So technically, kailangan nyo pag-aralan yan and to understand because you're working or you are studying on that institution. Nag-iiba yung mga formats ng mga institutions natin. But regardless to say, the general principle or guiding principle when they write their paper would now be your IMRAD. Okay, now before going with your IMRAD, first things first, when you craft your paper, maski kahit anong paper yan, kahit hindi research paper, always prepare your title. Kasi ito yung unang makikita ng mga audience, ng mga readers natin, no? So basically, when we talk about your title, it should capsulate the problem and the objectives of your study. One would also add that kailangan catchy, etc. All of those are principles. Nandyan sa notes natin, no? But basically, essential yung title natin. Dito natin makikita. Yung once you have read your title, automatically, the reader will now have an idea kung ano yung problema at yung objectives ng studies natin. When it comes to principles, when it comes to crafting your title, ang daming sources dyan, no? So some would say dapat kasali daw yung population, etc. It's up to you, no? And it's up to the institution and probably your advisors. Now, especially, remember, you are undergrad students, no? So aside from the institution, mananaig din yung advice ng ating mga thesis advisors. So religiously follow your thesis advisors kasi alam nila yan. Yan. And 10 to 15 words, although it depends on the institution actually, no? But don't make your title too long, and too short would now basically cannot encapsulate yung mga problema at yung objectives ng study. Now let's go to your introduction. When it comes to your introduction, ito yung mga parts ng ating introduction, and some parts may vary as well when you write in different institutions, no? But I'll just include yung mga important or sort of relevant, no? So first would be introduction. You have to introduce the problem. So para siyang literature writing, no? So suggestion would be scale it, no? So what do we mean about scale it? Start from kunyari a general part going to specific. So kunyari your issue would be your local government code. You could include, for instance, a wider perspective about your local government code, then later a comparison between countries such as United States, then later pa-scale ka papunta dito sa local scenario. So from comparison from your foreign or international countries, pupunta na tayo dito sa Pilipinas. We look into the local government code of 1991, tapos unti-unti nang pa-scale. So for instance, yung study mo would now focus on barangay level. So from your local government code, provincial, municipal, then directly pupunta ka na sa barangay. Then you will now elaborate your problem. So ganun yung introduction, no? Although those are just suggestions or tip, no? Kasi maganda tignan kung general to specific para may leeway, para may guiding principle yung or guide yung ating mga readers. Now, next would be in terms of scope and delimitation. Dito na lalabas yung target na ating research, no? And please take note, quantitative no? Although we want to generalize, although mamaya tayo papasok sa statistics, no, we want to generalize, or rather we want to study the whole general population. It seems hindi natin kayang gawin kasi we lack the necessary resources. So basically, quantitative will give us an idea or give us a chance to know a certain data by looking it into a specific population or into a specific setting. So you know, you have to delimit yung population natin. Kunyari, you have to delimit yung problem, no? So you want to talk about corruption, but basically corruption would, if we want to look corruption at a wider scale at wala tayong budget, we lack the necessary resources, hindi natin kaya. So for instance, we just limit it kunyari sa barangay natin, sa community natin at sa mga municipalities natin. Yeah, we have to delimit it, no. Then another essential feature when we talk about your introduction would now be the significance. So why is it relevant? Why is it important, no? All of us are keep on doing researches, but the question would now be, ano nga ba yung importance nito, no? How will we apply it towards the society? And technically, dapat makita din natin yun, na-identify natin problema, napaka-relevant nga ba siya when it comes to current situation, etc. Blah, blah, blah. Yan. That would now be your significance of the study, actually. Then, one of the guiding principles of your research, I have a separate discussion on this one, would now be your theoretical and conceptual framework. This will now serve as your heart in research, no, lalo na sa quantitative. Kasi sa quantitative natin, di ba, quantitative researches basically apply a general knowledge, or uses a general knowledge and apply it to specific or specific population, no? So dito kailangan ma-enumerate mo yung theories, lalo na yung mga concepts din. Kasi lalo na, please take note, your concepts later would now be your variables that are to be measured. So kailangan klarong-klaro yan, no? Mas maintindihan natin to pagdating dun sa isang video all about theoretical and conceptual framework. Now, you have now identified your concepts, soon to be your variables. Dapat naka-label siya, ma-illustrate natin sa research paradigm. There are two types of research paradigm, although may separate discussion din tayo dito. Yung IVDV model, then yung input process output. Yan. So makita natin yung cause and effect, or if you're just looking toward survey, pwede na din yung input process output, no? Then lastly would now be your statement of your problem. Definitely, when we talk about research, may problema yan. Kaya nga, we create research in order to solve certain problems. And this is how you craft your SOP, or your statement of your problem, in quantitative studies. Now, basically, this is a suggestion. This came from a statistical book, no? Now, one observation na napansin ko kasi, both undergrad and master's degree, medyo nagkakamali sila pagdating sa pag-construct nila ng statement of the problem. Now, it's not to blame yung ating mga thesis advisors, yung mga panels natin, but basically this is suggested by your statisticians. And remember, quantitative, you have to listen to those who specialize in the field. Kaya ito yung mga suggestion na ating mga statistician, no? And there's reason naman behind it, no? So basically, when I was still writing my research, although quality yung research ko, nakita ko din na hindi dapat ganito. And they explain why. Kaya we could see the reason. Now, kunyari, no? So for instance, you just want to write a survey. So simple survey lang siya. So univariate statistics. So I already introduced these types of statistical tests, no? But mas maintindihan natin, hopefully, pagdating sa mga succeeding lessons. Now, pag univariate statistics, basically we're treating variables independently, or medyo may nakikita na din tayong causality, sort of, no? So yung pag-craft natin ng questions, what is R? But remember yung quantifier natin, so what is the degree of agreement? What is the level of implementation of RA 6672? Hindi ko alam kung anong number yun, no? Etc. Or to what extent? So may quantifier tayo dito, no? So yung extent degree level could be measured through frequency and percentage for yung statistical tool. So basics will now be frequency and percentage. Frequency, you're simply counting. Pag percentage, dinidivide mo lang by 100. So, equivalent lang natin siya sa cent, no? So, 100, no? Sa numerical data. And also, measures of central tendency. Basic na sa atin to. But medyo, I will make it a little bit of a collegiate level pag nag-discuss na tayo dito. Mean, median, mode. Measures of variance. Could also present yung surveys natin, no? So, variance and standard deviation. Now, tendency, we will now look into two variables and it's association, correlation, relationships. Dito na papasok yung bivariate statistics. So, yung tools na ginagamit natin, correlation and regression. Kung mataas nga ba yung relationship, kung mababa yung relationship, kung inverse o direct, no? Yan, correlation, regression. Now, later, we'll be discussing inferential statistics. Now, this is now my dilemma pagdating sa online teaching. No? Napakahirap ituro to. Kasi inferential statistics basically connotes yung hypothesis testing natin. No? So, dito napapasok yung naalala nyo yung null hypothesis, then your alternative hypothesis. When we craft our hypothesis, kasi dichotomous siya. There is a relation, there is no relationship. May I insert significant relationship? No? So, the questions would now be, is there a significant relationship? Dito na papasok yung ating correlation chi-square test of independence. Kung naalala nyo yung research design, quantitative research design, basically this would now connote your correlational studies. Now, if you use sort of like an ex post facto, experimental, or lalo na causal comparative. Lalo na causal comparative, difference yan. Is there a significant difference? Then causal comparative studies will now use t-test, lahat ng t-test natin. Independent t-test, dependent t-test, analysis of variance, MANOVA, multivariate analysis of variance, so etc. Now, take note, medyo nakakahilo pa to, no? Kasi you have to discuss this religiously, no? Kung yun yung tamang term, no? Yung term na significant, kasi tendency, there will always be a relationship. Pero where we are now using a thing called margin of error. So basically, pwedeng in a significant relationship siya mataas, pero hindi siya pasok. So, doon papasok yung hypothesis testing. Mas madali siyang mag-gets kung nag-ano na tayo, pag nag-discuss na tayo dun sa technical part. Formula part, probably. Kailangan eh. Yan. Oops, sorry. So, yun yung SOP natin, no? Then later, we'll now proceed to the next step, which is now methodology. Now, under your methodology, we have the following part. Research design and methodology. So, research design, quanti or quali? So, yung focal point natin would be quantitative. But when you write your research, syempre, you have to identify kung qualitative nga ba yung ginamit or quantitative. How, diba? Then, methodology. So, kunyari, pag quali ka, you use historical analysis. Or pag quantitative ka, we use a descriptive correlational method. Diba? Ganun yung definition. Then, you have to elaborate right. Population ng lokal, syempre, quantitative tayo. We have to delimit yung population natin, no? We have to set out our parameters. So the population would now be second year college students. Or for instance, our population would now be the legislators of the sangguniang panglalawigang members of your Benguet. Kunyari ganun, no? Then the local, syempre Benguet. Yan, you have to scale it down. Data gathering tool, basically when we refer your data gathering tool, ano yung pang-measure natin dun sa mga concepts or variables natin. Now, to give an example of your data gathering tool, in quantitative studies, no? Questionnaire, di ba? Questionnaire could be one. In terms of text, ano pa ba? Questionnaire test, checklist, di ba? Yan. Pero ang pinaka-common, lalo na sa atin, Polsci would now be the questionnaire, no? So, may items yan, may mga questions, then they will now rate it. Yan, more likely the Likert scale. Data gathering procedure, how did you gather the data? So ano ibig sabihin nito? So more likely ikikwento mo lang yung ano nangyari dun sa procedure. Now kunyari you want to interview about the health sector in your barangays. So we went to Barangay A, we asked permission to the barangay captain to float questionnaires. Upon the approval of your barangay captain, we now distributed around 40, dapat naka-indicate din yung sa population ng lokal, no? We now float around 40 questionnaires, blah blah blah, etc. No? So ikikwento mo lang ano nangyari dito, no? Then in your treatment of your data, dito nalalabas yung statistical tools. Now, kunyari your SOP is constructed into 3 questions. So kada questions may treatment of data yan. So kunyari yung foundation natin would be number 1. What is the degree of anxiety among online class students, di ba? So we use survey. The survey is we use survey. In treating this data, we use mean, median, mode, or we use mean and variance. For number 2, is there a significant relationship between gender or significant difference between gender and anxiety? We use t-test. Ganon, di ba? You have to indicate the formula. And I think that is one dilemma when it comes to online teaching kasi this is a reading and you have to check on the undergrad thesis, no, pamakits natin, no. But regardless to say, I hope yung mga notes na ma-send ko sa inyo na maka-attach, makatulong kahit paano. Then we have your presentation, analysis, and interpretation of the data. Ito yung hinahanap-hanap natin. Mali yung notion natin na research is all about going outside the classroom, parang field trip, magkakasama-sama, gathering data. No. This is now the end that will now justify the mean. Looking into the findings. Yung data yung gusto natin when it comes to research, no? So basically, ganito yung proseso. So this is more like the methodology part. Collecting data, organize, and treatment of data. So, kailangan nyo nang i-formula yan, i-compute. Although we have your computer softwares naman, no? Then, upon computing, you will now need to present your data in your paper, in your research paper, and analyze and interpret the data. How to analyze and interpret the data? Na-present mo na yung data, you need to corroborate your theories. Although there's a separate discussion on that one, no? Ano ibig sabihin ng corroborate theory? Yung theory na na-mention mo sa theoretical framework, yun yung panggamit mo ngayon sa pag-corroborate ng iyong data. So, kailangan talaga essential yung theoretical framework kasi yun yung magiging guiding principle. Nagbigay ka ng data, you have now interpreted. Now, ano yung worded, ano yung description nyo dun sa findings nyo? Dun papasok yung theory. Yan yung lagi natin tandaan, no? So, kailangan yung theoretical would now corroborate the findings of your study and in order for us to understand your data. Then lastly would now be your conclusions and recommendations, although not the last actually. So in conclusion, summary of findings. So it depends on your statement of your problem. So from your statement of your problem, number 1, ito yung summary. Number 2, ito yung summary. Number 3, ito yung summary. But please take note, research is basically research because we want to solve a problem. And that would now come in dito sa recommendation. So what kung nandun na yung findings? To what, di ba? To what extent? So ano na ngayon, di ba? This is now your application of findings. So you will now provide recommendations in order to solve the problems that you have now identified. So basically, this could be in terms of per statement of the problem or your research in general. So for instance, nakita nyo na mababa yung involvement ng health sector sa barangay, ito yung mga suggestions namin. Papakita nyo sa barangay captain, okay, so ganito yung mga problema na nakita ko. Then later, doon na natin nakikita yung application ng ating research. And always forget, no, this is a don't forget, no, this is a formal paper, no, so we have to attach some attachments, no, we have to attach some attachments, references, your bibliography. Remember, you are already college students, no, so proper citation, acknowledgement of the authors that we have borrowed, lalo na mga phrases na ginamit natin, or sentences, paragraph, or words. Then appendices, no, this will now, aside from giving us a proof that we conducted our research, is to also give us yung the ways or yung images, no, how we now proceed with the research. No, appendices would now include yung letters that would now asking permission or consent, lalo na sa pag-extract ng ating data. Kasi ito yung pinakamahalaga, lalo na we have a lot of issues, lalo yung all about copyright issues or consent issues, no. So bakit naisali yung pangalan ko, hindi ko naman pinayagan, no, so permits. This would also include some documents that will support your findings or your claims. So kunyari you have search about you study all about archives, no, or history, tas kailangan ng archives, you have to attach it, no, in order to supplement and support your claims in your findings. Yan. So thank you guys. I hope may natutunan, and basically this is just a review when it comes to your research. We'll go to the technical aspects soon. So thank you. What's up?